Hi, hello, welcome to Adhyapana Academy. From today onwards, I will be posting videos on small concepts in the subject of strategic financial management. So, hope it is useful to all of you. Let's get started. So, let me screen share the OneNote where I will be manually explaining the sums. Right. So, இன்னைக்கு நம்ம என்ன பார்க்க போறோம் அப்படின்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னா risk and return of a security. It's a very simple concept. It is based on a formula. And the formula எப்படி வந்தது? I always believe in understanding the logic behind the formula rather than just memorizing the formula. Okay. So risk and return of a security. That is what we are going to discuss today. Right. So an individual, while investing in a security, what will he look into? He will look into two factors. One is the return and the other is risk. Correct? So, if an individual wants risk-free investments, he does not want to take any risk. If he wants to invest in risk-free investments, in such case, what will happen? The return will be guaranteed, but will not be high. It will be a minimum guaranteed return. The risk will be zero. Alternatively, if an investor invests in shares, what will happen? He will have high or low returns. Why do I mention high or low return? Because the returns will be fluctuating. When the returns are fluctuating, automatically you have a risk coming in, right? So when you invest in shares, high return goes hand in hand with high risk, low return, low risk. Okay. So how am I going to choose on which security to invest? As an investor, I have some amount of money now with me. How will I decide where to invest? If I do not want to take any risk, there is no second thought at all. I will directly invest in government bonds or in securities, which will give me guaranteed returns, right? If the investment is in shares, is in the stock market, in which case I will analyze on which company share to invest. Whichever company gives me high returns, I will make investment in that share, right? When I choose a share, I choose a company which gives high returns, it obviously will have high risk. On the other hand, if I want low returns, I will have to go with low risk, right? So now, how am I going to choose which shares to invest? Example, individual A. Okay. He has got a mindset of investing in shares of ABC Limited. What is the average return of the shares of ABC Limited? Here, just I'm giving random numbers. Year 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. For these periods, if the company is giving an average return of 20, 25, 30, it need not necessarily be in the growing scale. It can also come back to 20. Okay. So, what is the average return of the company during the past 4 years? I will analyze the average return of the company from its past performance and then decide which share to invest, right? So, on basis of past performance, I add up all the returns. When I add up all the returns, I get 95%. These are all random numbers. Okay. This is referred as sum of X. So what is the average return of the company ABC Limited over the past 4 years? You can write it as X bar. X bar is mean. Mean is average. It is sum of X divided by N, which is 95 divided by 4. So how much is the average return? It is 23.75%. This is the average return of the company over the past 4 years. If I have two companies under comparison, one more, let me take XYZ Limited. XYZ Limited, there also I am going to compare the past 4 years returns. So let me take some random numbers again. 15%, 20%, 18%, 33%. Just chumma random numbers. Okay. So if I take XYZ Limited's performance, it is 15 plus 20 plus 18 plus 33, which is 86%. This is again sum of X, the total of returns over the 4 years. 15 plus 20 plus 18 plus 33, 86%, which means what is the average return over the past 4 years? It is 86 divided by 4, which is 21.5%. So, based on returns, which company will individual A choose? Individual A will obviously choose ABC Limited, right? So, how am I measuring the return? Measuring the average return. It is sum of X divided by N, where N is the number of years. This is the formula which is applied for average return on an individual security. Average return on an individual security is measured as sum of X divided by N, which is nothing but the mean formula in statistics, right? Suppose instead of giving information on an individual series, this is called as individual series. Now, number of years data, that series is called as individual series. Suppose உங்களுக்கு information individual series probability series. Let me give you another example for ABC Limited, where the return for the past 4 years is given as a probability series. Now, whatever I'm doing is all random numbers. After this, after explaining the formulae, I will be discussing a sum. That question I will give you in the description box. You can refer that sum for the solution, which is put up on the board. Okay. So, in the ABC Limited, probabilitical returns kuduthirundha enna agum. Suppose year 1, it has a return of 25%, year 2, 30%, then it is 35%, and then it is 40%. It is suppose in the growing scale itself, in which case, if these returns are not sure of happening, there is a probability associated to this return. If suppose the probability is 0.2, 0.3, 0.35, 0.15, if this is the probability, what is the average return then? Average return will be the expected return. Expected return is nothing but the returns multiplied with the probability of its happening. Okay. So 25 into 0.2 will give you 5. 30 into 0.3 will give you 9. 35 into 0.35 will give you 12.25. 40 into 0.15 will give you 6. The total of these numbers is again the average return. Here, I am not adding the numbers and dividing it by the number of observations, but I am multiplying with the probability. This is called as effective return or expected return. It is sum of X into P. Okay. So, 5 plus 9 plus 12.25 plus 6, 32.25% will be the expected return. 5 plus 9 plus 12.25 plus 6. 32.25% will be the expected return. So, here expected return I have found using two different formulae. One is when it is an individual series of data, it is sum of X divided by N. When it is a probability series of data, it is sum of X into P. Right. Now I know what is the return from the security. How will I measure the risk of a security? While measuring the risk of a security, we use standard deviation formula. So, I will tell you why standard deviation formula is used for measuring the risk. For an individual series, it is sum of X minus X bar the whole square divided by N. And for a probability series, The standard deviation is root of sigma x minus x bar the whole squared into t. Okay. Let me tell you why standard deviation is used as a measure of risk. Okay. See, again, let me give you some random numbers for a return of ABC Limited. Okay. Here 1, 2, 3, 4. All these are random numbers. So 20%, 25%, then 22%, then 24%. All these are random numbers. Okay. What is the average return for the past 4 years? You know now how to find the average return. X bar is equal to sum of x divided by n, right? So it is 20 plus 25 plus 22 plus 24 divided by 4. 22.75% is the average return. Okay. The risk is nothing but the deviations from the average. The deviations can be either positive or negative. If it is a positive deviation, I will be happy. I am getting returns more than the average return. If it is a positive deviation, I will be happy. In which case, you should be prepared even for accepting a negative deviation, right? So, while measuring the deviations, my expectation not 22.75% per annum varanum எதிர்பார்க்கிறேன். ஆனா அந்த deviation மேலையும் போலாம் கீழையும் இறங்கலாம். மேல போச்சுனா we are happy, which means negative போச்சு, you should be prepared. That is the risk. That fluctuating returns is the risk. That is why I measure deviations. Deviations from the average return. So 20 minus 22.75 will give you minus 2.75. Then 25 minus 22.75 is 2.25. Then 22 minus 22.75 is minus 0.75. Then 24 minus 22.75 is 1.25. So standard deviation or the risk is one single number. It cannot be 4 different numbers. How will you take the average now? The average cannot be just like how you did it in mean. Mean la x bar போடுறச்சு என்ன பண்ணீங்க? You added the 4 numbers and divided it by the number of observations. Probability series are into p. இங்க deviations எல்லாத்தையும் 4 வருஷத்துக்கு ஆட் பண்ணி டிவைட் பை 4 போட முடியாது. ஏன்னா அதுல பாசிட்டிவ் நம்பர்ஸும் இருக்கு, நெகட்டிவ் நம்பர்ஸும் இருக்கு. சோ என்ன பண்ணணும்? ஃபர்ஸ்ட் அத பாசிட்டிவா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணணும். எதை? எல்லா deviationsையும் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பாசிட்டிவா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணணும். எப்படி பாசிட்டிவா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ண முடியும்? x minus x bar ஸ்கொயர் பண்ணா பாசிட்டிவ் ஆயிடுமா? ரைட்டா? சோ 2.75 into equal to 7.5625. 2.25 into equal to 5.0625. 0.75 into equal to 0.5625. 1.25 into equal to 1.5625. இப்ப all deviations has become positive numbers to me. Correct? Abdina, I have taken the square of the number. Now add these numbers. When you add these numbers, 7.5625 plus 5.0625 plus 0.5625 plus 1.5625. 14.75. This is the sum of the square of deviations. Okay, ma? Abdina, how much is the average deviation? Average deviation will be 14.75 divided by 4. But this is the square of deviations. Correct? Now this is nothing but the variance. Okay. So 14.75 divided by 4 is 3.6875. Now, what is risk? It is standard deviation. It is square root of 3.6875. So square root of that number, the risk associated is 1.92%. So now coming to explaining the formula. Enna aachu? Na deviations measure panne. From what? From average returns. To know fluctuations positive irukka negative irukka, evlo positive irukku evlo negative irukku, enakku fluctuations therinjirukku. அந்த fluctuations நான் one single figure எப்படி கொண்டு வருவேன், எல்லாத்தையும் ஆட் பண்ணி டிவைட் பை த நம்பர் ஆஃப் அப்சர்வேஷன்ஸ் பண்ண முடியாது. ஏன்னா அதுல பாசிட்டிவ் நம்பரும் இருக்கு, நெகட்டிவ் நம்பரும் இருக்கு. அப்படின்னா நெக்ஸ்ட் என்ன பண்ணும், எல்லாத்தையும் பாசிட்டிவா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணும். எப்படி பாசிட்டிவா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணுவேன், அதை ஸ்கொயர் எடுத்தா எல்லாமே பாசிட்டிவ் ஆயிடுமா? சரி, சோ திஸ் இஸ் x minus x bar the whole squared. அந்த அப்சர்வேஷன்ஸ் ஆட் பண்ணி டிவைட் பை 4 பண்ணா எனக்கு வேரியன்ஸ் கிடைக்குமா? எனக்கு தேவை ரிஸ்க், எனக்கு தேவை ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் டிவியேஷன். So it is square root of variance which will give me standard deviation. So what is logically happening here? What is ideally happening here? எனக்கு deviations மெஷர் பண்ணேன், நெகட்டிவா வந்தது. அதனால என்ன பண்ணேன், அதை ஸ்கொயர் பண்ணேன். அதை என்ன பண்ணேன், ஆவரேஜ் எடுத்தேன் டிவைட் பை n போட்டு. இப்ப அந்த ஸ்கொயர் நம்பரை திருப்பி ஸ்கொயர் ரூட் எடுத்தா எனக்கு அது சிங்கிள் நம்பரா வந்துருமா? So what is the purpose of taking a square and then the square root? It is to convert the negative number to a positive number. This can you write it as x minus x bar the whole square divided by n the whole power of 1 by 2. Square root is 1 by 2 தானே? அப்படின்னா என்ன ஆகுது, 2 inside and 2 outside will get cancelled. So what is the purpose of taking the square root? Why is standard deviation formula used to measure the risk? எனக்கு deviations பாசிட்டிவாவும் இருக்கலாம், நெகட்டிவாவும் இருக்கலாம். அதனால முதல்ல அதை ஸ்கொயர் எடுத்துட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் அந்த ஸ்கொயர் ரூட் எடுத்தா எனக்கு ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் டிவியேஷன் பாசிட்டிவ் நம்பரா வந்துடும். This is the logic behind applying standard deviation formula for measuring risk. இதுவே probability series இருந்தா, how do you measure standard deviation, which is nothing but the risk of a security? Standard deviation or risk of a security will be measured as root of sigma x minus x bar the whole squared into p. Okay, wow. So this is the standard deviation for a probability series, and one more is the standard deviation for individual series. This standard deviation is a measure of risk of a security. Next video, I will tell you about systematic risk and unsystematic risk. The risk of a security gets classified into two, systematic and unsystematic risk. Okay, so now coming to a sum. Let me explain a proper sum. This sum will be given in the description box. You can check it for reference. So consider the following data about the return on equity shares of two companies. They have given the return for company X and company Y. Determine the average rate of return for two companies, variance and standard deviation of return for two companies, coefficient of variation of the return for two companies. So what is this new term, coefficient of variation? I will tell you as we progress with solving the sum. Okay, so years, they have given data for 10 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They have given return of company X. Return of company X is given as 15%, 17%, 19%, 21%, 25%, 23%, 18%, 20%, 23%, and 19%. Okay, so how do you measure average returns? Let me do for company X first. How do you measure average returns? It is X bar. Is this an individual series? Yes, because they have given data for 10 years. It is sum of X divided by N. So add all the numbers, 15 plus 17 plus 19 plus 21 plus 25 plus 23 plus 18 plus 20 plus 23 plus 19. 200 divided by 10 years. So 20% is the average return. Now to measure the deviations. What is that deviations? It is X minus X bar. This is minus 5. This is minus 3. This is minus 1. This is plus 1. And so on. 5, 3, minus 2. 0. 3, minus 1. Now, these deviations are positive numbers and also negative numbers. So, you will take the square of the deviations, x minus x bar the whole squared. 25. The sum of deviations is 84. So what is standard deviation? It is root of 84 divided by 10. Right? The sum of square of deviations divide by number of observations. If you want, I can write the formula. Root of sigma x minus x bar the whole squared divide by n. The sum of square of deviations divided by the number of observations, square root of it. 84 divided by 10 and the square root of the number. 84 divided by 10, 8.4. Square root of that number is 2.898. This is the risk. Okay, that is for company X. Then do it for company Y. For company Y, they have given us the data 20%, 19%, 18%, 17%, 15%, 23%, 14%, 13%, 12%, and 19%. Okay. So what is sum of Y? Sum of Y is 170. Okay. What is Y bar? Y bar is 17%. Why 17%? 170 divided by 10. Where average return, which is Y bar, is 17%. Now coming to the deviations. Y minus Y bar. Hope you understood why standard deviation is used as a measure of risk. Okay. This is 20 minus 17. 3, 2, 1, 0. Minus 2. 23 minus 17. 6. 14 minus 17. Minus 3. 13 minus 17. Minus 4. 12 minus 17. Minus 5. 19 minus 17. 2. Here again, the deviations is a combination of both positive and negative numbers. So what I do? I will take the square of the number Y minus Y bar the whole square. 9, 4, 1, 0, 4, 36. Right? What is the sum of the square of deviations? Sum of square of deviations is 108. Okay. So this is standard deviation X. For standard deviation Y, it is root of Y minus Y bar the whole square divided by n. So it is root of 108 divided by 10. Okay. So 108 divided by 10 and the square root of that number. 3.2863. This is standard deviation of Y. So hope you have understood now about the average return of a security and standard deviation of a security, which is risk of a security. In this question itself, they are asking you one more coefficient of variation. What is that coefficient of variation? Before doing that, let me summarize the risk and return of the two securities, X and Y. So first we calculated the average return, right? The average return for X is 20% and for Y is 17%. So which is more appealing? X is more appealing in terms of returns. Then comes risk. What is risk of the two securities which we calculated? It is 2.898% and 3.2863%. This is risk. In terms of risk, which is more preferable? I want low risk. I want high returns, but at the same time, I'm not prepared to take high risk. I want low risk, right? So company X is a straightaway choice in terms of high returns and low risk. Correct? There, company X is a direct choice in terms of high returns and low risk. Sometimes there may be a misleading suggestion. Just a minute. Sometimes there may be a misleading suggestion. So coming to coefficient of variation. Here it is clear company X is to be chosen. Why? Because company X gives high returns. At the same time, it has only low risk. So company X is a straightaway choice. Now, coming to an alternative, let me give you a random example again for coefficient of variation now. Okay. Say suppose the return of company X is 20% and for Y is, say suppose 19%. Okay. And risk measure for company X is 5%, but for company Y, it is only 3%. Here in the question which we just solved, in terms of high return and low risk, company X was a straightaway choice, correct? But what if it gives you contradictory suggestions? Return high, company X. Risk low, company Y. Choose pannuven. Here comes the role of coefficient of variation. What is coefficient of variation? Coefficient of variation is nothing but SG divided by mean. What is SG divided by mean? Mean. அதாவது அதுக்கான அர்த்தம் என்ன அப்படின்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னா, இப்ப எனக்கு இங்க 20% ரிட்டர்னுக்கு 5% ரிஸ்க், இங்க 19% ரிட்டர்னுக்கு 3% ரிஸ்க் அப்படின்னா 1 ரூபி ரிட்டர்னுக்கு ரெண்டும் எவ்வளவு ரிஸ்க்னு கால்குலேட் பண்றேன். அதுதான் கோஎஃபிஷியன்ட் ஆஃப் வேரியேஷன். ஓகே, சோ இங்க 5/20, 5% risk for 20% return, 3% risk for 19% return. So how much is the risk for 1 rupee of return? 5/20 pota 0.25, 3/19 pota 0.157816. Abdina coefficient of variation brings the risk to 1 rupee of return. It brings you to equated returns. Okay, when it brings you to equated returns, inga 0.25, inga 0.16, ana return adhe same 1 rupee da. Abdina enaku vara ore return ku, same return ku, company X has 0.25 risk, but company Y has only 0.16 risk. Which one will I choose? If a return same abdina, I will choose company Y. Okay, ma? I will choose a company which has a lower risk. Let me give you one more example. Rend company X and Y. Okay, say suppose the average return, let me take different numbers, 25%, 35%. This is average return. Risk வந்து இது 2%, இது 3%. ஓகேவா? இப்ப இங்க என்ன ஆறுது? You are getting 10% more return compared to company X for 1% increase in risk. Correcta? அப்படின்னா நான் 1% extra risk எடுத்தா எனக்கு 10% extra return வரும். Right? High return goes hand in hand with high risk. So, inga straight away, company Y will be the choice. Now, 1% extra risk எடுக்கிறேன், அதுக்கு எனக்கு 10% extra return வருது. Right? So, here again, find coefficient of variation. What is coefficient of variation? It is bringing the risk for 1 rupee of return. Okay, va? Abdina, inga 2% return for, 2% risk for 25% return. Inga 3% risk for 35% return. Abdina, enakku evlo risk 1 rupee return. When I'm dividing it by mean, it is for 1 rupee of return, right? So 2 divided by 25, 0.08. Inga 3 divided by 35, 0.086. Correct? So, இப்ப நான் சொன்னதே இப்ப மாறுறதா? நான் என்ன சொன்னேன்? 1% extra risk எடுத்தா 10% more return வருது அப்படின்னா நான் கம்பெனி Y சூஸ் பண்ணேன் அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன்னா, கம்பெனி Y சூஸ் பண்ணியிருந்தா என்ன ஆயிருக்கும்? உங்களுக்கு return 1 rupee இருக்கிறதுக்கு you are going to bear more risk. So you are looking at increase in returns. If there is a fall in return also, 1% extra risk எடுத்தா 10% increase in return மட்டும் இல்ல 10% fall in return கூட இருக்கலாம் இல்லையா? அப்படின்னா coefficient of variation will help you decide which security to choose based on risk and return brought into common terms. Okay, when you are bringing the risk and return to common terms, என்ன ஆறுது? அதோட formula is SD by mean. ஆனா அதோட logic என்ன? 1 rupee ரிட்டர்னுக்கு எவ்வளோ ரிஸ்க் அப்படிங்கிறது தான் SD by mean. I hope this video was useful. Please stay tuned to the channel. I will post updates on a regular basis. Thank you. Bye.